What's happening, guys? Today we're going to be talking about gear, most specifically wedding gear, and why I am switching from Canon full frame to the Fujifilm X system. Let's jump in. All right, guys, so for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Paul Friedman. Behind the camera, we got Spencer Mindell, and we make Main Mountain Media. We do everything from real estate to video production, but a huge part of our business is wedding photography, and wedding equipment is something that I am constantly rearranging and thinking about. So I'm gonna try to keep this short, but I could literally talk about this all day, so forgive me if I ramble on a little bit. Gear really gets me excited. It's a huge motivator behind me being a photographer in the first place. So without further ado, I am switching from Canon full frame to Fujifilm X system, which is an APS-C crop sensor system. Big switch. Really took me a long time to convince myself. I have a Canon 5D Mark IV, which is just an absolutely amazing camera. And to put that down, stop shooting with that, and start shooting with the Fujifilm X system was a decision I did not take lightly, and it took me a really long time. For a long time, what I was doing was mixing the two. I was switching back and forth. I had a Canon 5D on this hip, and I had my Fuji X-T3 on this hip. And to be perfectly honest with you, I actually really liked doing that. Kind of gave me the best of both worlds. It gave me that crazy fast autofocus from the Canon DSLRs, as well as the ability to use all that is amazing L-series glass that I have. But in the end, I think the biggest problem I was having was the optical viewfinder. Electronic viewfinder is something that is super important to me. It has changed the way I shoot a lot. And the reason for that is most specifically because in wedding photography, I get so caught up in the moment. It's really, really important to me that I capture moments as a wedding photographer. In fact, as a photographer in general, capturing moments is something that's really near and dear to my heart. It's how I remember experiences in my life. It's sort of how it's taught me to appreciate the beauty around me. Moments are just, it's everything that we have, you know, and photos are sort of the way that we bring those moments into the future with us. And I was missing a lot. With the optical viewfinder, when I was just shooting DSLR, I was pretty adept at like checking my meters. I would chimp every once in a while to double check my exposures were correct. But you know, you're relying on the camera to tell you if it's the right exposure, and metering modes and autofocus, you know, whatever, all the different systems can be wrong. They don't know what you're trying to accomplish. Whereas an electronic viewfinder or an LCD screen, you can visually get that feedback right away. You know immediately what the final image is gonna look like, or at the very least, you know what the final exposure is gonna look like and what you can do with it in post-production. Obviously, I shoot RAW. I think you should too. If you don't, give me a reason why you should shoot JPEG, but I shoot RAW. That gives me the most latitude later. Gives me even one more line of defense when I'm just trying to capture moments. Getting a properly exposed, getting a properly lit and composed image is obviously, those are tools that we use to help ourselves as storytellers, and that's obviously very important. But those are all secondary to me besides the moment. The moment is the key factor in photography, and especially in wedding photography. And so when I can have that visual representation of the final image and know right away, this is the proper exposure, this is a decent composition, this is a this is a that, you know, I've just got it all dialed in and I'm looking right at that image, I can really get caught up in the moment and focus and be a little more in tune with the events of the day. And I started finding myself, especially when I was switching back and forth, I'd be looking through my optical viewfinder on my Canon and I'd be snapping away like, oh, what a nice moment. This is amazing. Oh, and grandma's hugging and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd look down at the photos on the back of my screen and they would be totally blown out because we went from outside to inside or inside to outside or whatever. And I wasn't getting that visual feedback. So switching from an EVF to an OVF was just not an option for me anymore. And I found myself liking the experience shooting with the Fujifilm more than the Canon. So I finally made the switch. And today we're gonna go over the equipment that I have chosen to use for the year, and some of them are actually the very reason why I made the switch. So let's dive in. So first of all, as you can see, I've got the Hold Fast Moneymaker harness system with two Fujifilm cameras. This is the XT3 for eagle-eyed viewers. This is the XT20. That's not what I will be shooting. It's a placeholder because we have an XT3 shooting video right now. This is the ONA or ONA, the Prince Street bag. It is the waxed canvas in smoke gray. It is a fantastic bag. I really, really like it. It's a new purchase, so I don't know how it'll hold up to the test of time. Although that being said, I did buy it used and it really, really looks like it's in good shape. So I expect it should hold up pretty well. But regardless, really beautiful bag, really well designed. So shout out to ONA. Speaking of brands, I need everyone to know I am not sponsored by any brand at all in any capacity. No one has sent me anything. No one has even sent me an email requesting anything. That being said, I'm open to sponsorships. So if anyone's watching and you want to send me some stuff, I would do that. But for now, all of this is bought and paid for by me 100%. Like, I'm not picking favorites based on anything except my personal experience and how much I like this stuff. So this bag is really awesome. Who knows how it'll treat me all year, but it is a 11-inch shoulder bag, so big enough for a very small laptop or a like an iPad. That being said, I did go to a meeting with a client a little while ago. I needed a bag. I'm sick of carrying a backpack. So I pulled all the fitting foam, all the camera foam out of this, and I could fit my 15-inch MacBook Pro. So yes, it stuck out a little bit on the sides, but it got me to and from the meeting without having to load up a backpack. Don't take my word for that. Do not quote me on that. Do not buy this because you want to carry your 15-inch MacBook, but it does work, so take that or leave it. We'll get into that in just a second. So over here we have the XT3. This is my trusty XT3, and I absolutely love this camera. This is the camera that made me switch from full frame. Autofocusing system is amazing. The flippy screen, the 3-way articulating screen here, awesome. Helps for low angles. It's saving my back. It's saving my knees. I absolutely love that I can shoot high and low angles with this thing without, having to deal with the different autofocus system. The fact that EVF and LCD are both using the same focusing system as opposed to the extremely fast optical viewfinder autofocus system in the Canon DSLR, and then the very slow live view system. It just didn't mix well, didn't blend well. Obviously the 5D does not have an articulating screen, so high and low angles didn't, I was shooting photos on a skating rink one time and I had to literally lay down on the ice to compose my shot. And then I decided to switch to this, and I went out there and I was literally just slightly crouched and could get that same shot without needing to lay on the ice. So, just the ability to accomplish the shots much more dynamically, much easier is going to really encourage me to sort of get those angles that I otherwise might have just given up on. So absolutely love the XT3 camera and the Fujifilm system, the manual dials, the ergonomics, the color science is a thing. Obviously, we all know that. But I shoot RAW, and to be honest with you, since I've already been mixing Fuji and Canon for a few years, I know for a fact that I can match them up really, really well. If you guys are interested in our post-processing technique for wedding photography, give us a shout down below in the comments section, and we will let you know how we match up our Canon and Fuji files. And, yes, I'm a Lightroom editor. Yes, I'm aware of the the worming effect or the over sharpening that Lightroom does to Fuji RAW files. And I'm aware that Capture One does a really good job and all that, but for me, it's more about workflow. And to be honest, I don't really over sharpen my images anyway. So I don't know if that's gonna upset any people for me to have said that, but yeah, I will continue to use Lightroom at least for this year. Who knows, maybe down the line I can pick up Capture One, or maybe Lightroom will actually, Adobe, maybe do a better job reading Fuji RAW files. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you could do that, Adobe. That'd be really helpful. But regardless, these are the cameras. Also, I've got the two, I got the Moneymaker this year. This is new. I've been using the Black Rapid single shoulder harness for a long time, and it's a really awesome system, but I just can't put all that weight on one shoulder anymore. And the Moneymaker, you can see it crosses in the back here. And it's just so awesome the way it distributes all the weight onto both shoulders evenly. It is a little bit more like wearing a backpack, but instead of pulling down on your shoulders, it kind of pulls back a little bit, which keeps me from hunching, which is nice because I have super bad posture. So I actually really like the strap. We'll see how long it holds up and how much I like it after a you know, 8 or 9 hour shoot day. Obviously, I think the leather is going to be a little warmer than the Black Rapid Breathe system. So, you know, instead of like mesh, it's going to be leather against my shirt. I don't know how I'm going to love that over time, but I will update you later in the season and see how that goes. Also another interesting fact, I always shoot on my left hip with a wide angle and on my right hip with a telephoto. I've noticed, you know, I mean, this isn't like a scientific hypothesis or anything, but it seems to me like most people seem to put their telephoto focal length on their dominant hand side, or their shooting hand, which for most photographers is your right hand since cameras are designed that way, which maybe is a separate discussion we could have. But yeah, I always put my telephoto lens on my right side and my wide angle on my left side. So on the left side, currently attached to the X-T3, which again, will not be in the future. This is the newest lens in my lineup, and it's the one that completed the setup. It's the Fujifilm XF23mm f1.4. I love this lens. I never really in the past gravitated to that 35mm full frame equivalent, but it's something that challenges me a lot. I generally like to shoot wider than I should because I'm always afraid of missing what's in the frame. That's why I'm going all prime lenses this year. Not all prime lenses, but primarily prime lenses. That's a confusing sentence. Mostly prime lenses. I have a few zooms that I will bring with me, but I'm gonna try really, really hard to only shoot primes. When I first started out shooting photography, like 8 years ago, I had almost all primes, and then I went into the zooms because of sort of the Canon holy trinity of, you know, the 2.8 zooms. They are amazing. I love them, but I really like the limiting factor of primes and how it makes you think differently and shoot differently. So I'm gonna try to go back to my roots and get into the prime shooting again. And also you get the really wide apertures, which is a huge deal for me, especially when I'm going to a crop sensor camera system. Full frame obviously handles low light better. It's science.
It's science.
There's no argument to be had. It obviously has better ability to create shallower depth of field. That's also science.
It's science.
It's not an argument you can make. But, you know, shooting all prime lenses at f1.4 apertures, or maximum apertures, obviously I won't be at 1.4 all the time, but a maximum aperture at 1.4 sort of gives me that edge and gives me the ability to sort of recreate the look of a full frame camera more easily. So multiple factors going into this decision, but I will be shooting mostly primes. So again, this is the 23mm 1.4, and then the very, very final reason, the final nail in the Canon coffin, the reason I can actually confidently switch to Fujifilm, the 56mm f1.2. If you shoot Fujifilm and you do not have this lens, I want to hear why. It's probably because you don't shoot portraits or weddings or whatever. I'm sure you have a good reason, but if you shoot Fujifilm X system and you don't have the 56mm f1.2, you better have a good reason, because this lens is magic. It's amazing. And I'm saying that coming from Canon 85mm f1.4 ISL series. It's like, I mean, that thing is, it was magic. I pre-ordered that the day it came out, and I waited and waited and waited, and it finally came in, and that lens is just pure magic. So many of my favorite photos are taken with that. And so putting that down and being able to switch to the Fujifilm 56 1.2 was a hard decision, but as soon as I got it on my hands, it immediately set my mind at ease. Wide open, for those of you who are interested, if you're pixel peepers, the 85 1.4 is sharper than the 56 1.2 to my eye in my processing techniques, or not processed, as I should say. The raw images, unprocessed. These are a slightly softer, but chromatic aberration is handled better in this one. And it is almost half the size. So just amazing. And I mean, when I say softer, I don't mean soft. It's softer. It's like still so tack sharp wide open. And if you dare to stop it down to f2, it is just razor sharp. It is unbeaten. It is only matched. So This was the final nail in the Canon coffin. This will pretty much be glued to my camera throughout the wedding day. The only time it won't be on my camera will be if we are in really close quarters. Obviously, the 85 equivalent of full frame, sort of, you know, this medium telephoto focal length can get a little restricting for like sort of those getting ready rooms and hotel rooms and things like that. So other than in close quarters, this will be glued to my camera on my right hip all of the time. Absolutely love this lens. If you don't have it, try it. Let's move on to the rest of the bag. So again, the Ona Prince Street, nice little bag. It's got premium leather straps with little brass buckles and all that good stuff, and lots of space in here with some good dividers. This is a mix of the dividers it came with, as well as some of the dividers that came with the Tenba BYOB camera insert. I think that their outfitting foam is better than everyone else's, so I steal that foam for all my bags all the time. Anyway, so in here we have the first Fujifilm lens I ever bought. I bought this with my X-T3. This is the 35mm f2. The Fujicron Nifty 50. This is just, I mean, a piece of art. If you don't have this lens and you have the Fujifilm system, I think you're missing out, only for the fact that this is just brilliant and so small and very affordable. I mean, if you don't want to spend $1,000 on a portrait prime, I understand where you're coming from. That's totally reasonable. But this, I mean, the fast autofocus, the weather sealing, the small, neat little package. It's rugged as hell, all metal construction. It's just, I mean, just an amazing little lens. I will never let go of this lens. I can safely say that right now. This will be in my kit for the foreseeable future. If someone steals it, I will hunt them down and get it back. This is an amazing little lens. I absolutely love it. Super sharp. It's the sort of the 50mm equivalent. Again, I don't like to do the full frame equivalencies. I kind of wish people would get on board with the focal, the angle of view charts instead, and then that way people on all platforms could relate. For those of you who are on that system, this is a 46-degree field of view. I love it. Normal focal length, sort of sees the world the way the human eye does. It's a slightly more zoomed in. The human eye is more sort of like normal focal length, could probably be related to like a 40mm full frame equivalent instead of a 50mm. But that being said, it's not much in it. It's a really close race. So yeah, Nifty 50, well actually, Fuji just put out the 35mm f2 XC series, so that's a Nifty 50. I mean, it's plastic construction, but with all the same Fuji glass. That's a nice lens, but yeah, the all metal construction and the you know, the clicky dials. It's just an awesome lens. This will be for yeah, again, morning, close quarters, maybe some product shots, some flat lays, you know, all that kind of good stuff. And then this is the lens that started it all for wedding photography for me. This is the 16mm f1.4. The day that I bought this bright and early in the morning from Hunt's Camera Shop in Portland. Highly recommend them. Great customer service. Good stuff. They sold me this in the morning, and then I went to a wedding that evening and was shooting all my Canon gear, and then I brought the X-T3 for fun, slapped this thing on there, and in the morning I was shooting some getting ready photos, and I decided to try this one out. And just haven't looked back. This is an amazing, amazing lens. Very similar size and form factor to the 23-1.4, except it's weather sealed as well. This thing has traveled internationally with me. It's shot a lot of my favorite landscape photos over the last couple of years, and it will be a huge part of my wedding photography. Obviously, as I was saying, I have the 23-1.4, which is obviously a brilliant lens, and I'm gonna try really hard to use it because I have a tendency to shoot too wide very often. But I'm gonna have a really hard time not shooting the 16-1.4 very often. I absolutely love this lens, highly recommend it. It is sharp. It is, it's basically a macro lens. I shoot a ton of ring photos with this thing now. But yeah, highly recommend this lens, brilliant lens. And before we move on, I did just want to mention, if you haven't noticed already, which you probably have, I did get all the square hoods. I absolutely love the way they look. They are rugged, they're aluminum construction. Truth be told, I did not spring for the Fujifilm brand ones. I got some aftermarket brand ones. I went with the Velo brand. I wasn't sure if I'd like the square hood, so I didn't really see myself spending $70 on an aluminum lens hood. In hindsight, I love them so much, I probably would go for the Fujifilm brand if I were to do it all over again. But that being said, now that I've used the Velo brand, I know they're really premium construction, even though they're half the price. So I don't know, I'm torn. I always want to support Fujifilm because I love the system, but you know, I think I've invested enough in Fujifilm that they can forgive me for buying a few aftermarket hoods. But yeah, really brilliant construction. They are aluminum with the plastic, you know, clicky mount, obviously. But yeah, so this is the one designed for the 16. For those of you who are curious, this is the one designed for the 23 millimeter. And then on the 56, I also have the one designed for the 23 millimeter. It does fit. They do not advertise it. It was hard to get a straight answer on it. But yeah, the 23 millimeter square hood does fit on the 56 millimeter f1.2. So highly recommend if you're interested in these hoods that you invest. I use B&W clear filters, the best. They basically they're just protection filters. They don't affect the photos at all, good or bad. So if anything does get in there, I've got that extra layer of protection, and then the square hoods are basically just gonna live right on these lenses. And so I just don't need lens caps anymore, basically. So that's awesome. So those are my 4 primes. So again, 16, 23, 35, and 56. So for those of you who are shooting full frame and are making the switch, if you're trying to figure out what that means, it's a 24, a 35, a 50, and an 85. So I have a nice like medium wide, a standard wide, a normal focal length, and a medium telephoto. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. Those are the 4 primes. I'm gonna try to shoot my entire wedding season with just those 4, but I know myself, I always have the itch. Sometimes I want to shoot really wide, so I have the ultra wide 10 to 24. Brilliant, brilliant lens. We shoot a lot of video with this lens because it is stabilized and the autofocus is damn near silent and quite accurate, as is the stabilization is actually really quiet as well. And look at this form factor. This thing is teeny. It's an f4 lens, obviously, so, you know, not brilliant for low light. I might struggle on the dance floor with it, which is why I have the 16. This will probably be my go-to dance floor lens. But this is just an awesome, awesome ultra wide, and there will be days when I'm just looking for that really wide look. So 10 to 24 f4s in here, and we'll see how much I use it. Hopefully not too much, probably more than I should. But all right, moving on. Next thing is obviously going to be light. As you know, I'm shooting primes, which means I have a lot of light collecting ability, but sometimes you just need to shape light a little bit. So in here, I am a GoDoc shooter. If you're a Fujifilm photographer, you probably should invest in the GoDoc system. It's an awesome system. I think the reason why I love it so much is they make everything from tiny flashes all the way up to giant strobes, and they all talk to each other seamlessly. So super awesome. We have been shooting the 8600 Pro as our outdoor strobe. It's battery operated. We only have ever needed one strobe, one battery for this thing. And like even full power flashes for an entire portrait session. If you forget to charge it, show up to the next day, to another wedding, to an entire portrait session, outdoor full power flashes. This thing is amazing. So yeah, highly recommend the GoDoc system. This is our outdoor strobe light. Again, this is what we use for our group shots. And the cool thing about that is Spencer can shoot his Canon lenses, his Canon flashes and everything, and use the GoDoc's X Pro trigger. And then I can also shoot Fujifilm system and still get my triggers and flashes to talk to the same strobe, which is just really, really helpful for us. Obviously crossing over from Canon to Fujifilm, we figured we would encounter some compatibility issues, but GoDocs has really helped solve that problem. Speaking of the GoDoc system, so this is my tiny flash. This is the GoDoc's V350. They make the TT350, which is 2 AA's, but I decided to spring for the V350, which is no different except that it has the lithium ion battery pack. I haven't shot a wedding with it yet. This is just some tests that I've done, but I've heard a great list of reviews. Everybody seems to think that the lithium-ion batteries hold up to the test of time really well, a really fast refresh time, and hold out for most, if not an entire wedding day. So yeah, really excited to be shooting this little guy. It's just appropriately sized for a Fujifilm body. I mean, look at that. That's like, really doesn't throw off the counterweight. I don't like battery grips, so having just this tiny little camera body and a lens on it, this is just the perfect size flash and very capable as well. So yeah, really excited to be shooting that. It comes with the little Stofan style, you know, diffusion cap, which is nice. So that's that. Diving in here, I also have the X Pro trigger, as I mentioned. We knew we loved it from the Canon system, so it was a no-brainer. This is an awesome trigger. It's got devoted buttons for each group, A, B, C, D, and E, and you have a big, bright screen that has immediate feedback, so you know what all your flashes, all your different groups are firing at. Easy to switch them on and off, so if you're rotating around a dance floor and you want to turn off this system and turn this system on, and then you know you need groups B and C to be at 2 different powers and A needs to be turned off, it's super fast and you have immediate feedback on exactly what you're shooting. So great trigger, highly recommend. The price is right as well. Very appropriately priced. So X Pro trigger and the GoDocs. This little guy, by the way, the V350 can be a master or a slave. So this can also trigger any of the other strobes or flashes that I'm shooting. So really amazing little package. And then as of right now, I haven't invested in any devoted GoDoc Speedlights. We're still sort of working our way through the Yongnuo flashes that we had. We have a huge collection of them. So instead of replacing them just yet, although I am looking at the GoDocs V1, I hear good things. Let me know down below if you have any strong opinions about what I should get for bigger Speedlights. Whether I get the 860s or the V1s. But for now, I actually just am slapping the X1 receivers from GoDocs right onto the bottom of our other Speedlights, and they all talk to each other that way. So really affordable and quick and easy solution to a problem that I needed to fix quickly. So awesome X1 receivers on my old Speedlights. Don't have to invest in a whole new system. Now we've got the front pouches here, just a couple of accessories to wrap up this video. Obviously for anyone who has shot or even heard of Fujifilm, you know, battery life is an issue. Less of an issue for me. I have a very natural motion of switching the camera on as I pull it up to my eye and then switching it off as it goes to my hip. Cameras are never on when they're sitting at my hip. I just always turn them off as I put them down. I also have them go to sleep automatically after 60 seconds. So I actually get a lot of shots out of one battery. That being said, we have traveled a lot with these guys. We shoot video with Fujifilm, so we have 10 of the Fujifilm batteries. So they will stay in here. I only have 2 in there right now because this is just sort of my everyday carry bag. But yeah, we'll bring a whole stack of batteries, so that won't be an issue. I did buy a spare battery for the GoDocs V350. I doubt I will need this under regular circumstances, but if I forget to charge or if the battery fails for whatever reason, always good to have a backup. You never want to have a flash with no power. That was the beauty of the AA system. AA batteries are everywhere. They're easy to find, they're cheap, and that can be a nice backup option, but I'm really excited to be on the lithium-ion Speedlight flashes, so that's pretty cool. And then in this side, I just have a little pocket knife. You never know when you need to like cut a loose thread or you know, whatever it might be. I always like to keep a utility knife in my bags. In here I also have a little card reader. This is a lightning port card reader, so if I ever need to like quickly upload a photo to my iPhone or my iPad or whatever, I don't really like the Fuji app. I find it a little quirky and a little clunky and a little slow, and you just can't go wrong with an SD card reader. They always work. So I keep that around. Even if it's a backup option, it's worth having. Then wrapped up in this cloth, I have a macro tube. Not a very heavy macro shooter these days. I always had the Canon 100 macro. I used to bring it to every wedding, and I can tell you that over the last 2 years, I've shot it only a handful of times. So instead, I've decided to opt for a very inexpensive off-brand. This is the Viltrox brand. It's like 30 bucks. It's plastic construction, but it works just fine. And to be honest, like I was saying, I generally shoot all my macro and like ring photography these days on the 16-1.4. So I don't know how much use this will get. I got it just in case I find myself missing a devoted macro lens and I really want, you know, either the 35 or the 56 to be shooting macro. Reviews online said that these macro tubes, even the Fuji brand, had trouble attaching to the 35 f2, but there it is. It just went on nice and easy. So maybe I just got lucky, but yeah, not an issue. So this thing works great. Full autofocus and stabilization capability. Not that any of these lenses have stabilization except for the 10 to 24. But anyway, something to have, you know. I think it's smart. That gets just wrapped in the lens cloth that I always keep in here, and just a little multi-tool. This is just like a little Allen key and flathead. You never know when you might want to, like late night, we often do like night shots under the stars and stuff like that. So if I ever need to just like slap a tripod plate or whatever, always smart to just have a little multi-tool. No bags that I own ever go anywhere without some sort of flathead and Allen key tool integrated into the bag somewhere. So yeah, that's the whole kit, you guys. I hope that this video treated you well. I hope all my reasons seem sound and reasonable. I hope that if you're shooting Fujifilm, you're loving it. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments section below what system you're using, how long you've been using it, and how it's treating you. So if you liked this video, if you found it at all interesting or informative, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you guys want to see more stuff like this. This was very gear centric because it is the 4th week of the month. We always do a gear related video the last week of the month. I personally love camera gear. I love hearing about it. I love researching it, and I definitely love buying it and unwrapping it, holding it in my hands. So I will be talking again about more gear at the end of April, and next week is the first week in April, so it'll be a wedding specific video, but less gear related and more about techniques and methods. So tune in if you guys are wedding photographers or interested in the methodology behind wedding photography. Obviously, the COVID-19 thing is keeping us a lot of people in their homes, so we're going to try to put out some extra content because we are also in isolation mode, and we're also watching hours and hours and hours of YouTube and Netflix and Hulu and all that good stuff. So we'll try to put out some extra content to keep you guys entertained and informed. All right. I'm Paul. This is Moneymaker Media, and we'll see you next time.